Man, you are a Hattiesburg legend. Do you think of yourself as a legend?
Well, yes. I mean, no. What do you... You said we were going to talk about some cool old stuff, man.
What advice would you give to a younger musician?
You know, just show up on time and sober. Treat people like you wanted to be treated at the club, like the bartenders and stuff.
What's your favorite kind of story to tell?
Women and trouble with women.
Man, that's, I feel like that's universal, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Off in the world like a Mississippi country. The Hardy Street Boys, Hardy Street Boys, Hardy Street Boys, it's the Hardy Street Boys.
Like and subscribe. On today's show, Cary Hudson.
Cary Hudson.
Of Blue Mountain fame, man, it's going to be huge. And just of his own fame.
Yeah, local legend.
It's going to be killer getting to actually talk to him. And he's one of those guys, like, you see him play all the time, and you know him, but do you know him? I really want to, like, pick his brain and just kind of be curious and see what he has going on, how he got into music, and how you, like, start a career like that where, I mean, it's pretty legendary, to be totally honest.
Amazing songwriter, dude. I'm telling you.
Killer. So, and he's going to perform for us later. So after this, Cary Hudson.
It's Cary Hudson on the show. Cary Hudson's in the studio. Cary Hudson, are you ready to go? I brought out my guitar just to show you that I know a couple of chords. And Cary Husband's gonna show us a thing or two about what he do. And Drew's gonna ask him deep diving questions, cause Cary Husband, Cary Husband, Cary Hudson, or Cary Husband, or Barry's husband. Who's on the show? Who's on the show? Cary Hudson is on the show. He's on the show. Let's go. Let's go. Cary Hudson, yeah, he's on the show, yeah.
Man, thank you, Jamie. So Cary Hudson, man, you are a Hattiesburg legend. You're a musician, singer, songwriter. Do you think of yourself as a legend?
Well, yes. I mean, no. What do you... You said we were going to talk about some cool old stuff, man. What do you mean?
That is cool. You seriously, like, you...
I'm just old. That's all. And I still play music. Everybody stops after a certain age, but I'm still doing it. So that's it.
Well, you're still really good at it, so you should still do it. You're like a fixture of the area. Everyone's seen you play, and when you play, you certainly command a room. How'd you get into it though? Like I get what we see now, right? But how did you get started with music? Why?
Yeah, well, I've always been into it. I did it in church, and I did it in high school band, and I did it with piano lessons. But as far as really getting like passionate about it, I'm sure you've seen on the Facebook all this ZZQ stuff. Mm-hmm. Sam Adcock and Robert St. John, and what that was. Robert and I are about the same age. He's 2 years older, so that was the first time I really started getting passionate about music was listening to that station. Yeah. Tell me. I started playing guitar then.
Tell me about the ZZQ, WZZQ. What was that station? What did that mean?
It started, I believe, in '72. It was based out of Jackson. Had a lot of power, 100,000 watts of power. But if you lived in Summerall, on the other side of the hill, and if I'd have just been a little bit down, I could have got it real good, but I was on the other side of the hill. So I had these rabbit ears, and I would put like tin foil on them, and I could pick up ZZQ. Sometimes you have to move it around. Mm-hmm. And it played stuff. It had a really eclectic selection because the DJs could play what they wanted to play. Mm-hmm. So you might hear John Prine. I probably started listening in '73 when I was 10. So you might hear John Prine or Pink Floyd, which was, you didn't hear that much on locally, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, who was an artist that you heard on that station that made you realize this is something you wanted to do? Or not maybe professionally, just wanted to get into lessons and...
Yeah, like stuff like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And then it was so super cool when I got a little bit older and started going to buy vinyl records. I started really getting into music a couple years later to realize that these guys were covering, a lot of them were covering people like McKinley Morganfield. Then I go look him up. I was like, damn, he's from right up the road, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So that made me think, you know, wow, you know, I'm from a place that has music too. It just doesn't come out of England.
Right, right. Isn't that weird how so much of like Mississippi music and culture found its way back to people in Mississippi through another continent?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of bizarre, you know,
is,
Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all those guys. It's kind of wild. Okay, so you played in church, you took piano lessons. Right?
Played trombone.
Trombone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what made you pick up a guitar?
Well, you know, we're just talking about that music. The guitar, that was the golden age of the guitar. And so, you know, that was the I just loved it. I mean, how can you not love it? You know, it's just, unless it's got one of those goofy fender necks, it's completely symmetrical. It's shaped like a woman's body with like a long neck. It's just I mean, I know you're a drummer, but the guitar, I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, got to cut away, but anyway.
No, no. As a drummer, I always like something about like fingerboard instruments. There's like some kind of mystique to it, and it goes much better with singing than drums. I mean, there's people that can do that, but it's just catered to a singer. So did you find your voice in church? That's usually where a lot of people discover they can sing. Was there ever like a moment where you're like, oh, I'm like kind of good at this. This isn't typical. You know, not everybody can do this.
No. No, I didn't have I mean, I sang and it was really cool and it was fun, but I never, nobody's ever been like, wow, man, you got a great voice. You should like think about singing or doing opera or something. And I wanted to be a guitar player. And so that's what I really, really focused on, was trying to be a good guitarist. And I'm still working on that. But I think my real passion after that in my mid-20s from the guitar became trying to be a good songwriter. Mm-hmm. You know.
So
the singing is just like, it's like a thing that you do, you know, like some people are guitar players that sing like Jimi Hendrix. Mm-hmm. That's the way I think. Not that I'm like Jimi Hendrix on the guitar, but that's an example. Right.
So like as a songwriter, do you feel more like a storyteller or a musician or like a mixture of both?
Well, I'm like a storyteller, songwriter, yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite kind of story to tell?
Women and trouble with women.
Man, that's I feel like that's universal, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
maybe that's why it's so appealing.
Yeah, right. I mean, you read the Song of Solomon sometime, you know.
Yeah,
because it's been going on a minute.
Yeah. Probably will continue. So when you were playing guitar, you picked that up. How old were you when you picked up a guitar?
I tried it the first time when I was 10, and most of us our fingers aren't strong enough at 10 to squeeze those strings. Mm-hmm. So I just kept, messing around with piano some, and I tried it again when I was about 12. The summer I turned 13. Mm-hmm. It worked better then.
Yeah. And then throughout high school, did you play in like jazz band programs? Did you take lessons? Are you self-taught? How did that progress? How did you progress into adulthood and into being a professional musician?
Mm. Well, I was just obsessed with it, and I went to college, and after college, I worked for like a year. I kind of got a late start with the music thing. But after I'd been working about a year, I was wanting to get in a band. So I put the word out, and my cousin Chris was up at Ole Miss, and he was in a band. And he met this girl he wanted to get married, and they're still married, so that's cool. That worked out. And he said, hey, man, I got this band. We're working every weekend. We're making a lot of money. Do you want to, and we're looking for somebody to play guitar and bass. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. So I moved to Oxford. I was about 23, probably, 22. And I think since that time, a few people have moved to Oxford to be musicians. But I think I was the first person that actually moved to Oxford to be a professional musician. People do that at Hattiesburg, but not in Oxford at that time.
What was that transition like? Was it scary to make that move?
No, it was a relief. I was like, I was sick of working, and I almost instantly fell into a really cool scene in Oxford because there was a cool scene to be found. Mm-hmm. And it was just a relief to be an artist and to live in a community that had other artists in it. Yeah, and cool places where artists hung out.
That's huge, man. The environment you're in, especially as a creative, it's important to have people around you who understand like the nebulous nature of creativity, whatever it is. It could be visual art, it could be literature, but songwriting is, I feel like something like that, and maybe like writing a book, like writing a novel, I feel like are the two things that are probably most prone to writer's block. Like, how did you find your voice? Like, you're 23, you're in Oxford, you're vibing, you're a musician now, you're a pro musician. How did you find your voice and start to develop like who Cary Hudson is as an artist?
Yeah, I was in this really cool cover band, and we slowly started to work in some originals, and so I wrote a lot. And finally I got one that people responded to. It took a few, and so then, once you've written one, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this, and I really set that as my goal. I was like, I want to be a songwriter. And there were there was a writing community in Oxford at the time, still is. And so, hanging out with these guys that write stories like Barry Hannah and Larry Brown and drinking at the bar with them, you're like, oh, okay, I'm kind of writing stories too, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a legacy up there. Faulkner lived there. And
yeah, right.
That's why it's funny to me you say, going up to Oxford to become a musician, there's a legacy of art up there that maybe isn't as celebrated nationally as well as it should be. Okay, so you're in cover bands. What a lot of people know you for is the band Blue Mountain. So how did that come about? When was that in your journey?
So that was the third band. I was in this band called the High Tops, and they were very distinct. The High Tops was this cover band that toured the SEC, and we made a lot of money. That was really cool. I don't make that much money now, most weeks. So then the members of that band morphed into an original band called the Hilltops. We're just like, okay, we just add 2 letters. High Tops to the Hilltops. And the Hilltops started making like zero money, but at least we had the cojones to like get an old van, and we started touring, and we toured everywhere east of the Mississippi without a record deal. I mean, we went everywhere and self-released 2 albums. Mm-hmm. And then like some personal stuff ensued, and that band broke up. And the last bass player in that band was Laurie Stearett, and she and I like had become a couple. So we moved to L.A. and lived out there for a year, and while we were there, we started Blue Mountain. Played our first shows out there, and then we came back to Oxford.
Yeah.
After a year.
Yeah. So what's that like, being in a band with a significant other? Because I always say being in a band's like, it's like dating, but you have more than one person to worry about. Like, that seems like a stressful situation.
You think?
Like, yeah. All your songs about trouble with women, and I mean that has to be, but it has to also be gratifying. You get to share this special art with someone you care about, but just like the grind of like touring and playing shows and being out late. Like, was that Was that something you thought about when you got into it?
No, not with the big head. No.
No, it's fine. We can move on. No, I'm just curious. Like,
I thought about it later.
no, but what was it like being in Blue Mountain? You know, you have.
It was super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we were together for 12 years, and 10 of those we were married. And we toured all over the U.S. and Canada, and then ended up doing some European tours after we reformed. And not too long after we came back to Oxford, we did a demo with Bruce Watson, the guy who has done a lot of the Fat Possum records, like RL. He was just getting started with Fat Possum. So we did a demo with him, then another record of the same songs in Athens. And then that record helped us get this record deal up in New York. And once we got that, then we started touring all the time, all over the place. And it was super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we were one of those bands that got pretty damn close to making it pretty big, and just doing what we did was super fun. I mean, it was super fun.
What advice would you have for like musicians who are just starting to get out on the road, maybe doing like small tours here and there? Because being on the road is a different animal. It's a different way of living. Mm-hmm. But it's still very much a business. You gotta have all your stuff together. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to a younger musician, maybe just now getting a taste of that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it took me a minute to get here, but show up on time and sober will fix. You know, just show up on time and sober. Have extra set of guitar strings. You know, treat people like you wanted to be treated at the club, like the bartenders and stuff. And I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty good advice.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
really.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a complex
Right.
answer
Yeah.
to be correct.
Just here's let me add something to that. Treat it like a job, you know. Treat it with respect.
Yeah.
And you'll have a lot better chance of it being a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Dress for the job you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Man, so Blue Mountain, right? So 12 years, and then you went solo after that.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest difference going solo?
Well, it's kind of a continuation, but it became the record deal up in New York went away with when Blue Mountain stopped, and my new band was me and Ted Gainey and Justin Chouat. So the dynamic became real different. You know, instead of being on the road with your wife, you're on the road with a couple of guys. Mm-hmm. So that was a different dynamic, and I'm smiling because it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
Blue Mountain was fun too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we got a deal over in, we got 2 record deals in Germany, one after the other. And so a lot of our touring became going over there with those 2 guys. And so that was also a very fun time period.
Right. Oh, yeah, logistically, for sure, it changes completely. Mm-hmm. But I just mean also artistically, where, you know, if you have a group and then you go out on your own, like Sting versus the Police, like mm-hmm. It's just more pressure. It's like, it's just you. Did you feel like that kind of responsibility? Because you talk about, you know, want it to be your job, or if it is your job, treat it like that. Respect the craft, mm-hmm. right?
Well, Laurie was a equal partner in Blue Mountain, and she, there's a lot of things to be done if you're in a band. You got to make posters, you got to do interviews, there's a lot of stuff to be done, and she was a complete equal partner. So these other guys were great, but it became me being I missed her in a lot of aspects, but that one.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too. If you make all the decisions, that seems attractive, but then the pressure's on you. Like,
Yeah,
if
you're
it
right.
doesn't work, it's
Yeah.
you. If it works,
Right.
it's you.
Right.
But also if it doesn't work, it's
Right.
you. No, that's awesome. Well, Cary, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break, but after this, more Cary Hudson.
Are you in the market for a new home?
Why, yes.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Because the people at Community Bank, they can take your dreams of owning a home and they can turn it into a reality.
No way.
Yes.
How do they do it?
Well, they have some of the most amazing tools available to anyone trying to get a mortgage.
Like what?
They have a mortgage loan officer on standby waiting for you to call them or go visit them face to face.
Is it like that Mortal Kombat select a player screen? They're just
Exactly.
ready?
They That's correct.
Knew it.
Yeah, so what are you waiting for?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I don't know.
Well, you need to go or call your nearest community bank location and talk to a mortgage loan officer.
Okay, I
They'll
will.
set you up
What?
because it's not that far-fetched for you to own your own home.
Thanks, man. I needed that, actually.
Yeah. So, also Community Bank, they do savings accounts and checking accounts. So, if you need any of that, they got you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Holler at your people.
Yeah, don't bury your money.
Yeah, like some of us.
Or bury some of it.
Yeah.
But most of it, put it in the bank.
Yeah. But they're also, just so you know, they're a member FDIC.
Equal housing lender. And we're back with more Cary Hudson. Cary, I want to hear about your solo act. We see you all the time around town. You play in New Orleans. You play all over. What do you have coming up?
I'm doing the solo thing, but I am so fortunate. I'm often joined by Katrina Miller.
Friend of the show.
Yeah,
We love
man,
Katrina.
the Katrina. And my daughter Anna has been joining us recently too.
That's
We
awesome.
just turned 20.
We saw you play at the Hippo last time you were there.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah,
it was,
with Grayson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Grayson.
awesome.
That was a
Grayson.
show, man. Y'all just traded songs. Like, you play. Dude, that was killer.
He and I do that and have done it frequently through the years. Okay, let's see. This week I will be coming up. Do you want me to talk about that now?
Yeah. What you got coming? Yeah.
Look, Friday, August the 19th, I'll be at the Barrel House in Fondren.
Yeah.
Hopefully with Katrina. I need to ask her.
Hey, Katrina, can you play April 19th in Fondren?
Literally this weekend in Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
That leads me. That could be a funny story, but we don't have time. So Saturday, August the 20th, I'll be down at a place called Satori with a good friend of mine named Abe Partridge. If you don't know Abe
Partridge.
check
okay.
him out. He's
Yeah.
a very, very interesting character. That's in Mobile. Friday, the August 26th, which is my birthday and Cedric Burnside's birthday.
Yeah.
I will be at the Weekend in Jackson from
Nice.
6 to 9.
Cool.
Nice.
There's some upcoming shows.
Yeah. That's so with those shows, you play solo, or you might play as a duo. You've also had your daughter come and sing with you. How is that different from, we're talking about the groups you played in, and then even your solo project with a band. How's it different, maybe not having drums or bass and all that? How's that changed your style and how you perform?
When I was living in Oxford, I was fortunate enough to see a few guys that did old school fingerstyle blues, and I got real into that style from people I could witness doing it, like R.L. Burnside and Son Thomas, and Jack Owens and some other people I got to see. So I've always been really into that, and Robert Johnson, but when my daughter was born, right about the same time my partner I'd been going to Germany with, Ted on drums, also started having babies. And that's when most of us say, it's time to quit traveling so much. And so my musical life became much more about playing in the Southeast and Mississippi and Louisiana. And I was like, this is the time period when I'm ready to get into trying to be like a country blues guy. Yeah. And I love doing that. And the thing that I do with Katrina is based on that. It's just that plus fiddle. And I still play with bands. I saw that did the gig with Andy, and I've got 2 shows coming up with Blue Mountain So I still pull out the electric, but really it feels age appropriate to be like an old blues guy now.
Yeah. Well, but I like what Andy Pate does with you, because he's a jazz, like a true jazz drummer. So you get like a jazz drummer. I know jazz and blues are not the same, but they are cousins. You know, like there's like this relation.
One lives in the city.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. One goes to a coffee shop a lot. Right. But yeah, I like what you can do now when you play with Katrina. What's your mindset going into that? You know, with another artist, like the fiddle, it's another string instrument. I almost feel like you might look at that as like the way like somebody like in a bluegrass group would look at it. You know, how do you play with another string player?
Well, with us, I mean, it's a beautiful blend of the two instruments. But the way I do it is it's kind of like country blues. I'm the bass player. This is the bass player, and then here's the chords, and then I'll get a little bit of melody, but Katrina's the melody. So, that's kind of the way we approach it. Katrina plays very melodically, and I try to play simply and melodically and kind of phrase oriented. There's a little bit of improv, but not tons. She comes from an old-timey bluegrass and classical background, and I come from a classical blues and rock background, so we speak a lot of the same language. Blues was the only one that we had to that she was unfamiliar with.
Man, what a community of artists we have here.
Man, you ain't lying.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how you moved to Oxford for that art community, and I was going to see how that interprets to Hattiesburg, as far as you talking about Andy and you talk about Katrina and these local artists. How do you think Hattiesburg kind of compares to, as far as artists goes, how Hattiesburg stacks up, if you will?
Well, I actually moved to Oxford for the job and kind of fell in with this community that was there. The writing community was there, but there was a lot going on. The blues Fat Possum artists were based out of Holly Springs, it was 30 miles away. And some of the members of like Wilco and Widespread Panic, they were playing in local bands in Oxford. There was a big scene. There were probably 3 or 4 bands that were touring around. And there were a lot of places to play, and sadly, to my knowledge, Oxford does not have that kind of music community at the moment. There's not as many venues, and there's not as many touring artists. And Hattiesburg reminds me a lot of Oxford at that time. There's different factors that have to come together. You have to be able to afford to live in a town, for one thing. And this is a town where artists can afford to live, and there's a lot of... I think I'm rambling, but I think Hattiesburg has an amazing music community. I think it's just... I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, musicians and just artists alone, like just an art scene that's out of this world. And another project I wanted to ask you about was, I know it's coming up, but something that you've been working on for years is the Piney Woods Picnic. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that kind of ties into what we're saying about local music community. When I first started the picnic, my real inspiration for it was the Hill Country Picnic up in Oxford area, started by my friend Kenny Brown. And the Hill Country Picnic focuses on Hill Country artists. If you're not from the Hill Country or you don't have a connection to it, you're not there.
Right.
And they've had offers from people like, believe it or not, like Mick Fleetwood's drum band. Not Fleetwood Mac, but his drum band. And they were like, sorry, you're not from here. That actually happened. Damn. So, when I first started the Piney Woods Picnic, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking it would be like a local music festival. I had partners at the time, and they were like, when you're partners, you make democratic decisions. This year is the most local my lineup has ever been, and I don't think I've ever gotten quite as much positive feedback on a lineup. It's, except for Grayson Caps, I think every person is either from Laurel or Hattiesburg or somewhere around here. And as crazy as it sounds, it's a 3-day festival, and I still wasn't able to get. I've gone around to people like Jacob Arnold, for instance, said, "Dude, I'm going to get you for this. You're on my radar, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten you yet, but I will."
Yeah, on Jacob Arnold, man, they sound so good, man. We
Yeah.
saw them recently. So when is the Piney Woods Picnic this year?
It's September 9, 10, 11, and it's technically it's kind of a private event because it's on my place and I have a limited number of people. If you're interested in coming, you just need to get in touch with me or Chad Edwards, and we're not that hard to find. And I feel sure we've got some spots open. We'd love to have cool people.
That's the coolest
Yeah.
pitch for a festival I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well, the
can
thing,
just
I'm not
get in
trying to
touch
be elitist, but it's like because we're still developing the venue. I'm sitting on like 27 acres, but it's mostly covered in trees. So I'm like having Tony Miller and I are beating back the brush literally to make room. And this year we decided we had room for about 200 people, so that's 150 tickets, 50 guests.
Man,
We hope to make it bigger, but that's not, like I say, not trying to be elitist. It's just that can't just throw open the doors at this point.
I don't know if you've seen the new Woodstock 99 documentary, but they talk about how they went. The reason it was such a tragedy was because the original Woodstock was about music, peace, the art, loving each other, community, and Woodstock 99 was about making a profit. How many bands can you fit in a short amount of time? How can you cut corners? How can we get all these people in one place? And it was a tragedy, literal tragedy. And it's so crazy that this is happening the same time that's out. Like, you're doing it the right way. It's not elitist. It's okay to be selective. That's
well,
fine.
and that I've heard about that movie. I haven't seen it, but I almost don't want to see it. I've seen the movie about Altamont, or it's a movie about the Stones being on the road in '69, I think it was, or '72. But the year of Altamont. I mean, festivals are frightening to put on because it can be complete magic, and it could swing the other way too.
Yeah. Well, I think Piney Woods Picnic is going to be amazing.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think you got because you got the right energy. Oh, you got the right energy. Well, Cary, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us. But it's time for us. We want to hear you play.
Yeah, you're right.
And do what you do best. So after this, musical guest, Cary Hudson.
HubCityHoedown.com.
Nice.
Need to know what's going on? All the upcoming events, people playing music?
Yeah.
HubCityHoedown.com.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's pretty cool.
It's a website.
It is a website. Yeah.
What else does it do?
It provides people with what's going on in Hattiesburg, especially live music. Like, I've got a show coming up
When?
Friday at the Thirsty Hippo. I'll probably play from 8:30 till about 10:30,
Friday what?
August 19th.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
What time's doors?
7.
Okay. Sweet. So you can check this. So Hub City Hoedown, to be clear, is all live music happening in town. It's being revitalized. They're trying to cover every single act that plays anywhere in town.
I believe so. And if people have an event coming up, they can submit their own event,
That's killer.
Isn't that cool?
At HubCityHoedown.com.
It's great for people who don't want to get on social media to find out things.
Yeah, but if they're watching this, they probably...
Are they?
Never mind.
Cool. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate the Hardy Street Boys for having me. I'm going to play a song for you called Mississippi Country Girl. This one goes out to Drew because he requested it. Mississippi country girl, down by the banks of the muddy pearl. Nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Raised on cornbread and black-eyed peas. She says, man, thank you and please. Ain't nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Down by the riverside, hanky-panky, a bullfrog jumping from bank to bank. That's where I hang with my Mississippi country girl. She can bait a hook, so good with a paddle, looking mighty fine sitting up in the saddle. Nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Get together like John and June, making sweet music beneath the Mississippi moon. Ain't nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Well, we're laying in the hay and we start to cuddle. I'm just happy as a pig in a puddle. Nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. There's a sparkle in her dark eyes that twinkle like stars in the southern skies. Ain't nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Yes, she's my Mississippi country girl, from down by the banks of the muddy pearl. Ain't nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Ain't nothing in the world like a some raw Mississippi country girl. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Ain't nothing in the world like a East of Butcher, Mississippi country girl. Nothing in the world like a Mississippi country girl. Yeah, yeah, alright, alright. There ain't nothing in the world like a squirrel hunting, biscuit rolling Mississippi country girl. Talking about one of them trailer park Pentecostal snake handling women. I think I smell some meth cooking over at a trailer, don't you know? Oh, that's pretty bad now. Nothing in the world like a Mississippi country